Good evening and welcome to Woodson Chapel. We know that the weather has kept a lot of you home, and if you're joining us tonight, we're so happy that you're able to be here through technology. We are proceeding on and having our Bible classes in just a moment after our devotional time. Before our Devo, we're going to go over the family news line. There's a lot of updates, so be paying attention. There's a lot of people that really need our prayers right now. So let's dive in. The sympathy of the congregation is extended to Wesley Walker on the passing of his father, Timmy Walker. His visitation will be at Woodson Chapel on May 10th from 4 to 7 p.m. in the fellowship room, and from 10 a.m. to noon on May 11th at the Martin Church of Christ, with the service to follow at noon. The sympathy of the congregation is extended to Sharon Archibald on the passing of her mother, Dolores Tucker. She passed away on Friday. Her arrangements will take place on Monday, May 13th at Woodson Chapel in the multipurpose room. Visitation will be from noon to 2 p.m. with the service to follow at 2 p.m. The sympathy of the congregation is extended to Marie Anderson on the passing of her father, Jim Brannon. He passed away early this morning. His services will take place at the Crevewood Baptist Church. Visitation from noon to 2 with the service following at 2:30. Entombment will be at 1 p.m. on Monday at Woodlawn. Marie Anderson will be beginning her cancer treatment soon. Tracy Chappell, the sister-in-law of Sheila Chappell, has been diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma and will be beginning treatment soon. Jane Cole is in Southern Hills Hospital and will be having surgery for a broken ankle this afternoon. Please no visitors at this time. Nancy English is under the care of hospice after suffering a stroke recently. A.D. Gibson, a friend of John and Patty Miller and a member of Neely's Bend Church of Christ, will be having bone marrow transplant on Wednesday to fight a very aggressive cancer. Shepard Johnson, the grandson of Tim and Wayne Johnson, had surgery on his eye on Friday. He is recovering at home. He's only 3 years old. The daughter of Charles and Joyce Johnson, Jessica Richards, and her husband Charlie are okay after a tornado this evening caused significant damage to their home. Keep them in your prayers as they look for their missing dogs and begin to repair their home. So many people that need our prayer this time. Please be diligent as you pray for all of these people and reach out and show them the care and love that you have for them. As far as announcements goes, we have a couple of VBS announcements and a baby shower. So get registered for VBS. VBS will be from June 2nd to the 5th from 6 to 8 p.m. every single night. That's Sunday night through Wednesday night, 6 to 8 p.m. Volunteers and attendees can all sign up by clicking the link that was sent out in the email this afternoon. Be sure to let your friends, family, neighbors know that they are invited. There will be classes for all ages, and if you have any questions, Stephanie put this down, please contact my favorite minister at Woodson Chapel, Hunter Kinnemer, by emailing hunter@woodsonchapel.com. There will be a baby shower for Rebecca Vos Johnson from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m. on Sunday, May 19th in the Fireside Room. Rebecca and Caleb Johnson are registered at Amazon and Target. Rebecca is the daughter of David and Karen Vos. There will be VBS work days from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. every day from Monday, May 27th to Saturday, June 1st. That's the crunch time right up next to VBS. That's that full week, Monday through Friday. Or Monday through Saturday, rather. There will be work for people of all ages and abilities. Asterisks on that, there are not going to be any activities or things for Hooper to do, but pretty much everybody else will have something. Also, I was told to announce that there will be no ladies class tonight. I don't know who has our singing. Dylan, come on up.
Well, 'tis the season for final exams. Teens, you might have some ahead of you. College folks in here are watching online. You may have had yours. Gave mine last week. I think I can safely say with Mike that it is better to give than to receive in many cases. There's a famous preacher, Charles Stanley, an author, who tells a story of a grad school professor who had an interesting out the tests and say, all right, everybody read through the test before you start taking it. Charles Stanley tells a story that as we were reading through the exam, it became crystal clear very quickly that we had not studied well enough at all. As we were thumbing through the pages, every next minute became more gloomy because it seemed impossible. You could start to hear groans throughout the classroom. By the time that they got to that last page, they were about to just give up. On the last page, however, there was a note, and it said this: you can either, it's up to you, you can either take the test as given or sign your name at the bottom and turn it in otherwise blank. Really? Just sign my name. And slowly it dawned on Charles and some of the others what the teacher was trying to tell. And after a few moments, you see a few students slowly filing out, turning in their test, and congregating in the hallway saying, is this what I think it was? And some students later went back to the professor and said, were you serious about this? Later, the professor would share some of the reactions that he received throughout the years that he gave the same test. There were always students in one group that did not follow the instructions. They began to take the test without reading all the way through. They would sweat it out for hours before reaching that last page. So their ignorance led to unnecessary anxiety. Then there was another group. This group of students would read the first couple of pages, get angry, storm out, and hand in their test totally blank. They never realized what was available. So they lost out totally. And then there was this guy. He read the entire test, including that last page, but decided to take the test anyway. He did not want any gifts. He wanted to earn his way, and he got a C+. Not too bad, but he could have had so much more. A lot of times we fall into some of these groups. Sometimes we spend our lives trying to earn what we discover years later was freely offered the whole time. These folks spend years sweating it out, wishing that they're forgiving, hoping and maybe being anxious about it, living their lives with doubts. Sadly, many people are like this second group. They look at God's standard, perfection, and throw up their hands and say, what's the point? Why even try? So I'm going to live my life as I want to. And what a shock to these people to realize one day what was available the whole time. And then there's that guy who took the test anyway. We meet people like him all the time, don't we? They're just unwilling to simply receive God's gift of grace. They strike out to do it on their own, trying to earn their way to heaven based on good things that they do. But in God's calculus, there is no room for boasting in our ability. And unlike the professor's test, in God's grading scale, anything less than 100 is an F. Fortunately, though, we have Jesus. We have someone who has lived perfectly. And by putting on Jesus, we can be perfected. We will not be perfect, but we can be perfected. So we have this opportunity in just a few moments when Dylan comes up and leads a prayer, or leads our song rather. If you've maybe been thinking about putting on Christ, there is no better time to do so. Or maybe you just want to talk a little bit more and ask some questions. Maybe you're here or maybe you're watching online. Let the church office know. Talk to one of our ministers, our teachers. We'd be glad to talk to you. It might be that you just need some prayers tonight. Prayers for comfort, prayers for loneliness, prayers for guilt, prayers for heartache. We would be more than happy to help you out tonight with prayer. It may simply be that you need to respond fairly quietly tonight, maybe to mend a fence with a Christian brother or sister, or maybe just dedicate yourself to be more devoted to Christ. Whatever the case, we invite you to respond in some way as Dylan leads us in our song tonight.
Our second song tonight is going to be I Will Call Upon the Lord. I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised, and so shall I be saved from my enemies. You know the Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. The Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised, and so shall I be saved from my enemies. You know the Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. The Lord liveth, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. I will call upon the
Let's go to God in prayer. Lord, we're blessed to be gathered this evening despite the weather. Be with us as we go through the rest of the week. Look after us and guide us. Be with all those that are sick and have lost loved ones this week and are affected by the storms. Let us be a guiding light in our community. Be with the students as they finish up their final exams and travel back home for the summer. All these things we ask in your name, Lord. Amen.
Can you hear that, JJ? All right. I wouldn't use this if it wasn't for the live stream. So, and we'll keep it more at a class. Well, because we knew that, don't feel guilty if you're at home, that just a few would be here, not just the dedicated, I'm not saying that, but we knew there wouldn't be a whole lot of people here. I wanted to depart from regular lesson, and I've got a good one here. You're going to like it next week. And it's going to be about falling asleep in church. Because there's a story. I almost called you Dylan. Sorry, Forrest. I just heard the snoring there. But there's a story about falling asleep in church. You know that one, don't you? It's in all the Sunday school stories. We're gonna take a look at that next week. So I thought for tonight, knowing we just have a few of you guys here, of doing kind of a little theological devotional and talking about some things that are kind of really, very gospel oriented. I love Jimmy's illustration. In fact, me and Ford just got through talking to him. It's a shame there weren't very many people here to hear that example. So we're going to have him do that again, maybe in the fall, maybe at the retreat, possibly. And there's the people walking through back there. We'll just wave them through. So this week at school, I've had in one of my classes, I've got freshmen and sophomores, and they're actually a pretty good group. I get frustrated with them. I know they get frustrated with me at my age, but they're still letting me teach. And sometimes I'll have a kid go, "Coach, are you coming back next year?" I said, "Have you heard something? Are they not? Have y'all heard something?" "No, I heard you say somebody said something about we're going to miss you." I said, "Well, they were talking about this summer." We were talking about a little bit like what Jimmy was talking about, that God's grace is scandalous, that it seems so extreme. And the reason I decided on this particular type of devotional message was from some conversations in my class. And here's what prompted it. I said, you can do something in a relationship with someone where that relationship will be broken permanently on earth. I said that if one of you smacks one of my grandchildren down, I will talk to you for a short period of time during the choking process, but we will never have a relationship. I said, if I run out on my wife and I womanize and gamble everything away, and she never speaks to me, I can still make things right with God. You just think about that one for a second. You can totally destroy a human relationship, but still get it back with God. You could be a terrible parent where your kids will not even talk to you anymore, and God will take you back. That's what I mean by that's scandalous. So that prompted this question. And a young lady said, and she's a deep thinker. She's always asking real deep questions. And so she asked, so if Hitler had become a Christian right before he died, he would go to heaven? And real nice people that didn't become a Christian will go to hell? I said, well, first of all, he didn't become a Christian before he died. There was no repentance there at the end with Adolf. And that led us to the Jeffrey Dahmer discussion. Boy, it's so interesting where kids, we're in a liberal society, and kids, they are different. Those of you that have teenagers today are different. That doesn't mean it's bad or worse. It's just different. And there's something about Jeffrey that they cannot handle him getting forgiveness. And last year we had someone come out to our school that had direct contact with the person that ended up studying and baptizing Jeffrey Dahmer. And I also know a preacher who knows the guy that did that. And everybody I've talked to that had either first or secondhand information on Jeffrey Dahmer said they're totally convinced from the study that he did with him, that his conversion was totally sincere, that he became a changed person. And you can tell it irritates the kids. They don't want him to go to heaven. Can you think of anybody in the Bible like that? Do what? That's a great illustration. He did not want his brother to get all the reward, the inheritance. That's a great thought. Great one. Keep talking. Apostle Paul, if you're listening at home. There were people who didn't want him. I mean, think about this one. This, if I was making a movie on Paul, I might throw this scene in. Now, this would be a little literary license. But, you know, when he got saved, he became baptized up in Damascus. And he stayed there right after his baptism. Real quickly, he's in synagogues teaching about Jesus. Okay, now this is like you found out that Farrakhan has become a Christian and now he's at a Wednesday night series. That's the way it was hitting these people. And what I've pictured, this is the literary license I would use if I was making a movie about Paul for dramatic effect. He's in a city speaking. And next week we're going to go to Troas for the church sleeping illustration. And I picture someone coming up after he's spoken at a church in a city. And they come up to him and they go, I just wanted to make sure it was you. You had my 2 sons killed in Damascus. And now you're going to heaven. See, that's what people grappled with. That's what I mean by grace is scandalous. Great illustration. We've got Paul. We've got Jonah. We've got Jonah. That's the one I was going to use. Okay. So, the prodigal son, Paul. So I'll do Jonah here in a second. What can you think of another one? With Jonah, think about this. This is where we are with Jonah. If you don't know any of the background to it, you're wondering, what's he pouting about? What's the deal here? He's upset. The Assyrians were in charge at that time. They were the big bully on the block. And what city was he going to? Nineveh. And Nineveh was the capital of Assyria. And there are reliefs, there are sculptings on walls. And when I was overseas, we got in one of the Israeli museums, they had some of these where the Assyrians, to strike fear in the neighborhoods that they invaded, they would hang people. Now, when we think of hanging, we think of the Old West, doing that. They took a pole, sharpened it, ran it up underneath the chest cavity, it came out the back of the neck. And they hung you on poles. And so you come into your neighborhood and you see everybody you know hanging on a pole, you're going to be pretty scared of the Assyrians. So they did that to strike fear. Okay? And these reliefs, these carvings are real clear. It shows the Assyrians filleting people's skin. They're pretty rough. The artists there, I guess they were enjoying this. This is so fun, y'all, and they enjoy doing it. And so the Assyrians were going to come and hit Israel. The prophets had said this is going to come. And Jonah did not want them to repent. They were such horrible people. To illustrate, it would be like the Lord appearing to a Jewish Christian during the Holocaust and saying, I want you to go into Munich and speak to the Nazis so they will come to me. You don't want the Nazis to be baptized. You want them to go to hell. And that would be a struggle. You think about if someone murdered your family, you want justice, and you can't wait till they die and they face God. What if Jeffrey Dahmer had taken one of your loved one's life and then you heard he got baptized? Kind of tough, isn't it? Coach Spann, I really hope one day we can get him here. I keep kind of forgetting to ask the elders if we could possibly have him here. I just forget about it all the time because his story on getting shot at church is an incredible story. And it's not a downer story. You know, Coach Spann's able to use humor, and it's a terrible story, but he, in his witty way. But he was asked, do you forgive him? And he said, yeah, I do. But what he told me later was his granddaughter was supposed to be there that Sunday. But something came up and she wasn't there. And he said, had she gotten killed? Mike, I don't know. I don't know. That's what we mean by the gospel, by grace being scandalous. That it would be tough. Now, Coach Spann and I are hoping one day, it's not time yet, if the DA will allow it, and if the guy, Samuel, will agree to us coming, we want to go and talk to him and try to convert him. Now, this is what's so incredible. He was baptized at that congregation. Did you know that? That's why you need to hear this whole story. A couple years earlier, he and two of his buddies were coming to that congregation. Actually, his name's Samson, not Samuel. I forgot his whole name, but part of it's Samson, and he looks like Samson. He looked like a defensive end in the NFL. And he came, and the people at that congregation loved him. It's a real small group, but they're very diverse. And at first, people were saying this was a hate crime because they think he had said something to his girlfriend or somebody about, you know, what had happened in South Carolina when a Caucasian guy shot up 8 or 9 black people in a Bible study, and that he was retaliating for that. But that doesn't make sense when he knows that that church was very diverse, but we don't know. But I don't know. I've pictured, if we're sitting there talking with him, I think I'm going to have to ask him, Samson, you're, look at you. You're just an incredible specimen. You could be a bodyguard, and you shot old people in church. Now, I probably should not ask that. I'm going to try not to. But when I see him and I know the people he shot, you look like an all-SEC football player, and you shot old people? But it would be kind of like if we study with him, and he's a big old guy, and Coach Spann and I baptize him, and we just make sure all the sins are washed away. See, if he kills my family, it's going to be hard for me to accept that. And that was the discussion we had in class. And I asked the young lady, I said, what is it that you can do that God will not forgive? What is there that you could do that God will not forgive if you sincerely come to him? There's nothing. God, no matter how much your relationship is destroyed with somebody else, he will restore it. So the Yates will remember we were at Radnor, and y'all had come back in 1974, hadn't you, when Jimmy Robinson got killed? Were y'all back then? Y'all got married the year after that. But the summer of 74, which is going into my senior year, junior year had just ended, we were going on a mission trip to Chicago. And Lytle, our youth director, he had us meeting at the church building to leave at 3 a.m. so that we could get up there before nightfall the next day. So we have to get up there at 3 a.m. So we've left our house about 2:30 a.m. And one of our kids in the youth group, my age, he was in the back seat of the car. His parents were taking him, and when he pulled off of, not Antioch Pike, the one before that, it goes on to Nolensville Road. Can't remember what the name of the street is now. Mimosa? That's not right. Anyway, McCall Street. It was McCall. They pull out on Nolensville Road, and a drunk driver topped the hill where Woodbine Funeral Home is. It's where Wendell was there back then, and Brother Fay Cornwell. He topped that hill and hit the back of him drunk and just folded that car up like an accordion and killed Jimmy. And so it looked like the trip was over. Now, this is a different time. That this would not fly today, I don't think. In fact, I don't think I could regroup and us go on up there, but we did. The parents met with Lytle, and they decided that we should go on the trip. And every kid that signed up to go went. And Randy Simmons, who grew up at Radnor, he preaches down in Florida now. Randy was a college-age kid, and he was not scheduled to go. And because we lost Jimmy, he joined our group. With Jimmy gone, he wanted to kind of fill that gap. And we also already got on the bus. We didn't leave anywhere. The 70 years in good ways and bad ways. And so we went on. And so we had another guy, Ed Hunley, who was a friend of Lytle's, and a couple of the older men that went, they would hold the Bible studies, and some of us just went along. And so I was with Ed on a Bible study. And we had the Jewel Miller film strip series. Now, if you know what that means, you're old, and there's a lot of people in here nodding their head. Whew. This isn't 50s plus. This is 75 plus in here. Yeah, 80 plus. I saw the Jewel Miller film strip so many times that I quit using the record when I showed them to people. I just narrated it myself. I didn't do the beep. I left that part out. But we're in the home, and again, this is a different time. We're just door knocking in South Chicago, which is primarily black, and we are glowing up there with our skin. And we're up there and really didn't think much about it. And so a 98-year-old, full-blooded Native American man lets us come into his home to study. He's 98. And so Ed is studying with him, and I don't know if it was the first time or second study we had with him, but we're sitting there talking, and Ed is talking to him about what Jesus did for him. That Jesus had died for you, and he said, Ed was sitting across on the couch in the living room and said, you can be forgiven of everything you've ever done. And this old Native American man, he shook his head like that, and Ed said, you can be forgiven of everything. He went, I'm too bad. I killed a man. Of course, now, I've now come awake during this Bible study. I was kind of just floating along there, and now I'm wide awake. And let's close this study right now. Ed did not investigate. I don't know what the circumstances were of the killing. Was it murder? Was it a drunken fit in a bar? I have no idea. You know, there's a lot of time lapse there. I don't remember everything that happened, but the next thing I know, he's standing in the baptistry and Ed's baptizing him. And obviously he's dead now. I don't know how much longer he lived, but Lytle had stayed in touch with the preacher up there, and they had stayed in touch with this man, and they said that people were talking about how they never saw this guy get out of the house. And after his conversion, they said he was outside walking every day. And he never came in. No neighbors ever saw him. And I think that's why we went up there. Because if we don't go up there, we don't knock on his door, and Ed Hunley is not there to talk to him. Maybe in God's sovereignty and providence, he would have arranged something else. But that's probably why we went up there. Now again, that's a sweet story unless it's your loved one that he killed. That's what we mean by the grace of God is scandalous. And before we close, I want us to read, you don't have to turn to it, in Ephesians, and this is kind of, you know, as far as grace, this is my Acts 2:38. The neat thing about growing up as we did, believing that we should be baptized, is we all knew Acts 2:38. Every kid in the congregation, they may not know, but John 3:16, they can tell you Acts 2:38. And probably the Great Commission also. But for grace, this is kind of that passage. If I can find it. Ephesians 2:8. The print has gotten real small. It used to be bigger. There it is. So let me back up here from 8. So that in the coming ages, God might show, now listen to this phrase, the immeasurable riches of his grace and kindness toward us. It's immeasurable. And that's why I asked that girl in class yesterday, what is it in the Bible that you can't be forgiven, that it says you can't be forgiven of? So I always back up and read verse 7. And then verse 8 says, for by grace you've been saved through faith. And this is not your own doing. It is the gift of God, not as a result of works, so that nobody can boast. And I said to the girl after, I said, is there anything in the Bible that you know of that says we cannot be forgiven of that? And she said, and she was not disagreeing with me, she said, it just seems so unfair that here's a really good person that would never do anything like that, but they did not get baptized and they go to hell. And I said, first of all, remember that God's decisions on these matters are just, and what he chooses to do, we will not argue with and we will agree with on that day. I don't think there's anybody that's going to be arguing. And I said, but secondly, a nice person who doesn't become a Christian is saying to God, I don't need your grace. I don't need your son. I don't need your sacrifice. I don't need forgiveness. I'm good to go. I said, that is spiritual arrogance. No, it's not murdering somebody, but it's looking at God saying, I don't need your forgiveness. I don't need that at all. And these are difficult situations and difficult scenarios. I then said this to her, third thing, and then I'll be quiet here in a minute, that if that person that we're talking about is condemned by God, I really believe when we see God's justice and holiness, because God is not good, he's holy. Y'all are good. Y'all are some good people. You're here on Wednesday night with the weather threatening. You're good. God's not good. He's holy. That I really believe people that are lost will not get mad at God. I think they're going to go, oh my goodness, I didn't realize. And they will realize, I deserve to be lost. That's a tough one. And I know we hadn't been there yet. That's my prediction. And then the conclusion of this section in Ephesians, for we, and we're not saved freely to sit around. It says, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. So, that's my devotional theological thoughts for tonight. And I hope you're safe getting home. And next week we're going to talk about sleeping in church and the problems that can occur if you're in the first century. All right. Y'all have a safe trip home. And I admire y'all for getting out. And those of you at home, we're glad you joined us. And we admire you for tuning in. You're being blocked by Doug Cloud as you try to look at me here.